He went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. And we've got some guests with us today. We've got Lisa, who's always my co-host on Sundays with Liberty Lounge. And we have Tom. What's your last name, Tom? Is it Phillips?
Phillips! Yeah.
Oh
Another
God,
Phillips.
It can't be
Unrelated.
two Phillips in here. We got Lisa Phillips and Tom Phillips. And Tom is a Bitcoin guy. So I'm so excited to have him with us today. Now, for those of you that are joining us, and I know that it wasn't showing up earlier, but here is the link in the chats if you want to join live, if you have any questions at any point. And I'll post it a couple times because as people roll in, I don't know if you see the chat previously, but if you click on that, it's kind of like Zoom. You're going to come in and then I can add you to the stage and you can ask your question. Please try to have your camera on and a good angle if it's at all possible. But if not, that's fine. You guys can enjoy the discussion. So we've got Tom on in the Liberty Lounge today. We want to be talking about Bitcoin. And Tom, I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody that is more of a Bitcoin expert than you are. And so the topic for today is not so much what is Bitcoin and stuff like that, but mostly Bitcoin myths demystified, right? Like some of the things Lisa, right, has always thought Bitcoin was Chi-Com. It was some kind of like scam to take your money and stuff like that. And all of a sudden now you got the Federal Reserve's buying Bitcoin, the Treasury's collecting it. And it's like, maybe it's not a scam. You know, where were we back when it was under $100? You know, what were we thinking? So you were one of those guys back in the early days that was stacking Bitcoin. So that is awesome.
Yeah. I started buying Bitcoin in 2013. I read an article earlier in 2013 from an old news site, a tech news site called Slashdot, and I've been an IT guy my whole career, and I'd go there for tech news. And I remember reading about the project. It was just an informational article, and I thought that sounds interesting. And then later it showed up in the mainstream news. They said, "Oh my gosh, Bitcoin is headed to $100 a Bitcoin," and I was like, it was when I first read the article, it was like $10 a Bitcoin, right? So I thought, wow, that's a pretty big jump, 10x in a really short amount of time. And I bought a little bit. Coinbase, the U.S. exchange had just opened up, and in the U.S., and I bought a little bit, and I started learning. That was kind of the process of learning, and ever since then, I've been studying it almost every day since 2013. So well over a decade. I've been studying it every day, learning more about it. I get excited to talk about it because once it clicks, you realize the revolutionary idea it represents, right? It's hard money in a digital age. It's incredible. So the freedom it can bring, the prosperity it can bring is fascinating to me. So I love telling people about it because it will help anyone who learns about it and it starts adopting it. It can help anybody in their life, regardless of their circumstances, whether they're a sustenance farmer in Peru or, a multi-million-dollar, net worth person in the US. It can literally be useful for anybody. So it's great.
So Lisa, you've always asked this question, like, what is Bitcoin? So Tom, who invented Bitcoin?
Yeah. Those are two different questions, but let's take them one at a time.
Let's dispel the myth that it wasn't Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay. Yeah, that's a recent one, right? So interestingly enough, Bitcoin was mentioned in the Epstein files, right? And when you kind of look at the context, one of the early, I'll say, startup companies that started building Bitcoin products called Blockstream was was involved with Epstein and some of the other investors that were part of what was the fund? It was like the Zorro Trust or whatever. They were looking for places to invest money in crypto in general. And crypto and Bitcoin are very different things, right? So most people that talk about Bitcoin on mainstream media and the news are saying crypto, and they think it's interchangeable with Bitcoin. But just to be clear, it is separate. But they were looking for investors. Some of the named folks that worked at this company were on Epstein's Island, and they talked about Bitcoin in the white paper, or excuse me, in the Epstein files. But Epstein has nothing to do with Bitcoin. And even if he did, even if it turns out Epstein created Bitcoin and it's a Mossad, trick to get into people's money, it's ridiculous. It would be like, what if you found out the discovery of fire was by some pedophile, right?
Was Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. Fire is now in the world and it's released, right? It's a discovery. It really is more like a discovery because it's open source, decentralized. No one can control it. It doesn't matter who invented it. The inventor, to answer your earlier question, was a person named or persons that went by Satoshi Nakamoto, and that's a Japanese name, but it's completely pseudonymous entity, some person that published under this pen name and interacted only for a few years publicly with people that were early developers of Bitcoin, early users of Bitcoin, and then he disappeared, and he's never come back on the scene. There's very specific last few messages, last public message, last private emails that people have shared, after the fact, now that Bitcoin has grown significantly. But yeah, the good news is no one controls it, right? That was the second part of your question. Who invented it and who controls it? Nobody controls it. It really is truly rules without rulers, where anyone can use Bitcoin, and as long as they follow the rules, anybody has access to interact and use Bitcoin in a open source, trustless way, to use a hard money in the age of the internet, where you can't teleport gold, instantly to the other side of the world, but you can with Bitcoin, right? So that's the value statement.
Now, one of the other things that you've mentioned to me is Bitcoin is different than other cryptocurrencies in the fact that there's proof of work. Bitcoin is the result of excess energy, right? So you have to have something real, energy, electricity, in order to create the Bitcoin, and it represents the excess. And the way that I have stated this is like, if you wanted to be a gold miner and go out in the gold rush, well, you had to have enough food. There had to be some society there to sell you a shovel and a pick. So your labor to go get the gold was a result of excess societal energy to where you could do that to bring back the gold, which served as a hard money. And Bitcoin is that, but on the internet. So explain that proof of work difference between that and other cryptocurrencies, and how Bitcoin is different than other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, that's a great question. So something that sets Bitcoin apart is the proof of work, and Bitcoin is unique in that it has a physical relationship to the real world, right? Physics are involved. This isn't something that was just created out of thin air and can exist. Even Satoshi, the first person who wrote the software, published the white paper, and started running the software and mining, he had to expend energy to get Bitcoin, right? Now, granted, back then he was the only one expending energy, so he was getting a large portion of the Bitcoin that was being mined for the early days. But within the first week, there were other people mining it, and they were basically entering into a competition to expend energy and be rewarded for that energy expenditure with newly produced Bitcoin. Most other crypto, and I say 95%, is not based on proof of work. There are a few coins that use a similar concept to that proof of work idea, but most other cryptos are printed with nothing. And even ones that say, we have a limited supply, they fix the supply and they use something called proof of stake. And that just means the people that have more voting rights, have more powers, they get more rewards. So the more you have, the more you can grow and you can do. But there's no link to the real world. And in almost all those situations, there's a single entity or a controlling council or a CEO or something like that has more control than any other person on the network. That's what sets Bitcoin apart, right? Anybody that wants to participate is an equal player, and the resources they put into it from a mining perspective, if they want to generate Bitcoin, they have to expend more and more energy, buy more expensive computer hardware to bring more power to the network to produce more Bitcoin. So yeah, Bitcoin's proof of work is unique, is important to the value of the coins, because it ties, it's what is behind digital scarcity, right? If you think about that in another way, if you took a picture of your cat, cute cat picture, you could send that to 1 million people through a platform like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and you can copy that picture of the cute kitten 1 million times at next to zero cost. So the concept of digital scarcity didn't really exist until Bitcoin came around and introduced this concept of proof of work, which linked it to the physical world, and then a blockchain, which just represents the ledger, which is an immutable growing log of transactions, starting from the very first one when Satoshi turned the network on to today when I sent some Bitcoin to pay one of my bills, right? So every single transaction is immutable on that ledger, and that is linked to the proof of work. So you can't update the ledger without expending energy, and it's this ever-growing kind of ledger of increasing amount of work.
Okay. So one of the other things that has come up when I've talked to people about Bitcoin is they're like, well, the blockchain is just a blockchain and there could be other blockchains and it's no big deal. So the real secret there is that tie to the real world with the electricity, but the blockchain itself is just a ledger. Like it's like basic computing for
Yeah.
software programming 101, right?
Yeah.
That is not like the secret sauce.
Oh, yeah. One sec. Sorry. Yeah. I totally agree. A blockchain, now that the concept has been introduced, a blockchain is just a slow database, right? So there are very few use cases for blockchain technology. If you don't have all the other components, I like to kind of refer to them as Bitcoin superpowers, right? Bitcoin has incredible superpowers that are unique to Bitcoin and that don't exist for other cryptos. And one of those things is the immutability of the ledger linked to the proof of work to update it. But if you don't have, and the decentralized nature, where there is no central entity that can just say, we need to update the rules, right? We don't like the monetary policy. We need to tweak it for the modern times, or, oh, a bank needs to be bailed out. We need to inject more money into the system. None of those things are possible with Bitcoin because there is no central authority that can do that. So the combination of the decentralized nature, the energy expenditure to update the ledger, and the slow propagation time, right? There's only one update to the ledger approximately every 10 minutes. All those things combined make Bitcoin a unique proposal that can't be replicated, right? The organic growth, the organic nature of how Bitcoin started cannot be replicated because somebody that is aware of how it works can't duplicate it in that same kind of grassroots organic fashion that it grew up from nothing. Right, the first year and a half, it had no monetary value at all. Bitcoin was traded at like a collectible amongst geeks, just testing out cool technology. And these original cypherpunks that were involved in this were sending it to each other until the first, famous transaction, which was the pizza transaction, right? Somebody that had a lot of Bitcoins. He was actually the guy that kind of was the first to use GPUs for mining instead of just regular stock computer CPUs. He adapted the software to be able to mine faster with GPUs, with graphics processors like graphics cards for playing games. And he had a large amount of Bitcoin in a very short amount of time because he was kind of the first to find this new technology to mine Bitcoin faster. And so he made an offer and said, "Hey, I want to feed my family. So if somebody's willing to send me 2 large pizzas and I want them delivered to my door, I don't want a gift card, right? I want pizzas delivered to my door. I will send you 10,000 Bitcoin, right?" Now, today, that's like mind-boggling, right? Because one Bitcoin is somewhere around $70,000 today. But 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas, and somebody took him up on that offer. And that was the very first time that Bitcoin had a dollar association. And since then, right, we've been growing and growing and growing.
My neighbor her daughter-in-law got some Bitcoin early on. So I don't know how she got it, but she had hundreds of Bitcoin, and she thought this is so stupid, and I've got to keep track of these codes. And she went to an ice cream little vendor that was selling ice cream, and they would accept Bitcoin. She paid 119 Bitcoin for an ice cream cone.
Ooh, that looking back in history, that stings. And I have a story just like that, right? So I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. Bitcoin was less than $100, and I used my allowance money, right? My wife and I had a strict budget, but each of us got a small amount of money every month that said, this, you can use this for whatever you want. You want to go out, eat out, you want to buy some book or go to the movies or whatever. So I spent my allowance, so to speak, on Bitcoin that month. And later that year, Bitcoin went from just under $100 to over $1,000. So we had an amazing Christmas that year, right? We homemade a bunch of our own Christmas presents. I bought beeswax from a vendor I found online. It was a family in Utah, a dad and his sons that kept bees, and they would sell the wax and the honey, and they'd make candies and stuff. So I bought what I thought was going to be 10 pounds of beeswax. I didn't understand the divisibility of Bitcoin. So they priced it in Bitcoin, not dollars. And I ended up buying 100 pounds of beeswax on accident. So I talk about it like the $1 million beeswax. Luckily, I still have most of it because I used maybe 5 pounds of it.
Hey, can I return this?
Yeah. Can I get the Bitcoin back, please? Not the dollar value at the time, right? Because that was next to nothing. But yeah, that was my story. It's similar to the ice cream story. You've got, the thing is, now I've learned my lesson. I spend Bitcoin every day. I buy and spend Bitcoin. I use Bitcoin as my money. I don't use dollars. In fact, I use dollars as little as possible. So I buy and sell Bitcoin, but I always replace. So I spend Bitcoin and I replace it with my income. So spending and replacing is a current strategy to continue to grow your stack of Bitcoin as you go and build your wealth.
Pray the Rosary Daily says, is it too late to invest, too expensive? And a lot of people, when they see these opportunities, like, oh, I could have bought it when it was $100 or $1,000 and now it's 70, it's too late. Where is Bitcoin going ultimately?
Yeah. So
and I think this is one of those, when you get this, when you understand Bitcoin is money and it has better qualities than gold, silver, land, cash, treasury notes, every other definition of money you can think of. Mm-hmm. The way, I've been reading these, the fiat standard and stuff like that. It's like, they're going to print money to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. Like the treasuries will. So where is Bitcoin going, and is it too late to get in? Have you missed the bus?
It's a great question, and it's probably one of the most common questions I get, right? And I've had people, when Bitcoin was under 10,000, I had somebody sitting in my living room saying, "It's too late, isn't it? It's too late, isn't it?" Right? And people will say that when it's $1 million, they'll say, "It's too late, isn't it? It's too late," right? Where is it going? It's going to infinity, right? And that's because we in the US, and if there are any international folks listening, anybody that's on a fiat currency, right? If you live in Italy, you use euros. If you live in the United States, you use dollars, right? Every country in the world is using a fiat standard. And when measured in a fiat standard, the value price is truly infinite. And that's because there's a fixed number of Bitcoin that will ever exist, right? There can never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. And there's nobody in the world, even if they want to, even if the demand skyrockets, they can't make more. Because of the combination of that and the infinite nature of fiat, right? Every time somebody borrows money to buy a house at a bank, money is created out of thin air. That money didn't exist like it used to in an old savings and loan in a black and white movie, right? That there used to be other people's money that were being used to build houses, and that was how savings and loans. But then we broke the link between the paper money and the hard money that it was supposed to represent. And when that break happened, now we have unlimited fiat. So what happens when you measure something that's fixed supply in a unit that's unlimited? It will go up forever, right? The scale at which it goes up is really based on
how fast they print.
And that's usually tied to government spending, right? Government spending is the number one way that money is created out of thin air. And so either way, the money printer is endless. It's on and running all the time, and it goes faster sometimes and slower sometimes. But because of that, Bitcoin has unlimited upside potential in
What
dollar terms.
one of the things that I've, you know, realized, and I've understood what money was for a long time. I didn't quite get where Bitcoin fit in until, more recently, really since I got out of prison. But the thing that really, okay, when we talk about the national debt, there are no solutions. None. You can't pay off the national debt with more fiat. You can just refinance it at a different interest rate and pay less interest. But it's this endless hamster wheel that you cannot get off of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but because of the way Bitcoin works, and there's this new thing, and it allows peer-to-peer, sovereign-to-sovereign transactions, right? I mean, look at the hubbub that was created when Iran was like, "We'll take payment for oil in Bitcoin." Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
That's a challenge to every fiat system on the planet. And so when treasuries, which is happening now as we speak, they just announced $17 billion in Bitcoin, held at the treasury, and we're not selling. They're going to print money to buy Bitcoin at a discount before the inflation hits the price of eggs and the price of steak and the price of stuff, in order to capture that hard money. So the answer is, there's no, like, Bitcoin's going to 100 billion. It's going to a kajillion. It will come to a point where if you have one Bitcoin, you will be one of less than 19 million people, 20 million people on the planet that have a Bitcoin. You'll be a sheik, you'll be a Saudi king.
That's right.
It is not too late to buy. It is the good time to get on a Bitcoin standard. It insulates you from the money printer. And what's happening now with that Clarity Act and all this other stuff is now governments are onto it. They are going to inflate their money to buy Bitcoin out from under you. Right?
Yeah,
because then they're going to base their new currency, just like gold. They're going to base whatever new standard on a Bitcoin standard that they'll hold in treasury.
Yeah, I think there's a likely chance of that happening. And I think we've already seen one country do it, and then the IMF applied pressure and they kind of reversed it. But El Salvador actually declared Bitcoin as legal tender. So there have already been movements at a sovereign nation level.
Right. Nigeria did too.
Yeah. So it's incredible, because the fact that we can buy Bitcoin for dollars means we're still early. Right. What you pointed out is, once there's an effect called the Cantillon effect, I believe it's how it's pronounced. And it's essentially the concept that people closest to the money printer get the most benefit from it. Right. So the first sovereign nation that basically says, we're going to start printing money to buy Bitcoin, is going to beat everybody to the punch. Right. They're going to win, because that won't be able to last very long. As soon as the inflation catches up, the price of Bitcoin will skyrocket it. Because again, it's an unlimited supply that's being printed and a fixed supply. So there are more than 40 million millionaires in the United States, right? Alone, just in the United States, there are more than 40 million people that have a net worth greater than $1 million. There are only 21 million Bitcoin. So if every millionaire just in the United States decided to buy one Bitcoin tomorrow, they all couldn't have it. There's not enough to go around, right?
This is going to turn the who has and who has not on its head. It's going to completely flip our world upside down. And this is the other thing I realized too. Bitcoin doesn't just replace a gold bar. It eliminates the need for the SWIFT system for Visa and MasterCard. It eliminates for private bank. There'll always be a place for private banks, but it's going to eliminate the fractional reserve lending system. It's going to eliminate mortgage markets, securities markets. It solves, and there's a book that you recommended to me. Here, let me pull it up real quick so people can see it. This is called The Bitcoin Standard. Mm-hmm. And this is a really, really good book. Oop, what happened here? What's going on? Okay, so this is a really good book. Lisa, I'm going to pull you down. This book right here, The Bitcoin Standard, kind of describes all of the elements that go into Bitcoin. And it doesn't talk deeply about the technology itself, but it talks about a real hard money standard. And it takes you through beads, seashells, silver, gold, and now Bitcoin, and how this is what every sovereign nation has to have, and every sovereign person has to have it. I do believe it's like, you're not really sovereign unless you have money. And money is not dollar bills, it's gold. right? And so this isn't a way for you to actually be sovereign. You can go peer-to-peer transactions with a nation state if you have Bitcoin, and it eliminates all of the corruption because the ledger is for everybody to see. We know exactly how much money the US Treasury has in Bitcoin, right? And it eliminates fraud. There's never going to be a time where Somali pirates in Minnesota are getting our money if we have a Bitcoin standard. And it really, the more I understand this, I'm like, this is inevitable. Like, you cannot stop this. It is a ball rolling, and it's going to take out nations that don't get on board. And there's going to be, like you said, those 40 million millionaires. That $40 million, when Bitcoin goes to a $40 million valuation, it's going to turn the entire world on its head.
Yeah, I do. I agree that I think Bitcoin represents the largest potential wealth transfer in
Keep talking.
memorable history, right? People that are, oh, sorry. Did I
No,
disconnect
just
there?
keep going. I got to mess with this little.
Oh, no,
stage
no
here.
worries. Yeah, I think because people that are getting into Bitcoin early like this, the fact that they're able to trade dollars for it, it's going to be life changing for the people that get in. And just to kind of go back to your question, where's Bitcoin going? I really do think that within 10 years, one Bitcoin will be around $1 million, right? So people that think, oh, it's too late, I can't get in, this early, or this is too late, it isn't too late, right?
So I got 400 moving things on my screen here.
No,
it's not too late.
No, not at all.
That is, I suffered from that. When you and I first talked, it was 124. I remember you sent me $5 over Zoom. Put up the QR code. And, oh my gosh, it was my first Bitcoin,
Instant.
Tom. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that.
Satoshis, and I sat and watched it go 124, 126. 60.
Yes.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But that volatility is actually on our side because it creates the buying opportunities. You can buy the dip. You should never be afraid to buy Bitcoin ever when you understand the Bitcoin standard. But right now is an unbelievable buying opportunity, even just forecasting out a year or two. And if you forecast out 5 or 10, oh my goodness. I mean, again, the way that the Trump administration and the world is now addressing Bitcoin, again, it is no small thing that Iran tried to charge their tolls in Bitcoin. That is not a small thing. That makes and Marco Rubio talked the other day about we're not even going to talk sanctions in 5 years because countries can go business to business. They don't have to settle those gold and dollar treasury accounts through the SWIFT system that we control. We won't be able to sanction anybody.
Yeah.
And that is like, when you get that, it's like, oh my goodness. Like, one of the biggest tools we have to be an American empire is the dollar. And when the dollar becomes negated, right, through the Bitcoin network, you cannot comprehend. The world is going to have an upheaval over this. And at the end of it is going to be prosperity and peace.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Bitcoin is not sanctionable. So when they started charging tolls in Bitcoin to get through the Strait of Hormuz, that was the death knell of the petrodollar system, right? The petrodollar system has been used as a means of control because the world operated on a dollar in order to buy or sell or trade oil. And that started breaking down recently with BRICS and things like that, and the threat of it. But this was the first real world example. Now, it's still a headline, right? It's still a quote from several news sources. I want to see the actual transaction on the blockchain for the first Bitcoin toll for moving oil through there. But that was a huge headline, right? If that actually comes to fruition and they start actually requiring Bitcoin, that's incredible. That could be the beginning of the end for the petrodollar system.
Well, Trump put a stop to it.
Oh, did he? I see. I'm not up to date lately.
He put a stop to it, but the threat of that, right? Yeah. To understand the significance of it, Iran is in a weak spot to do that extortion. But the moment a country like China says, "Hey, by the way, to buy our goods," and the whole world's hooked on China goods, we're only accepting settlement in Bitcoin.
Yeah,
they can enforce that.
Oh yeah, right? and with the rise of AI, just go ahead, choose your own AI platform you like the best, and ask it if you were independent and had to use any form of money currently on the planet, what would you use? Every single AI says Bitcoin, right? And the reason is it understands what sets Bitcoin apart from crypto, right? Lots of crypto make claims that are similar to Bitcoin, and none of them hold water compared to Bitcoin. So, yeah, it's incredible. Once more and more people, as adoption grows, which it grows over, it just continues to grow. It never shrinks, right? It continues getting bigger and bigger. The adoption of it, we'll see the price follow suit.
Yep. So, a couple things before we continue on.
Yeah.
At Peasants Perspective, we are running a contest. Okay. So, if you look on the page here, there's a little link where you can send tips, and there's a Rumble wallet. That is a crypto wallet that also has Bitcoin and a couple other cryptos. We love Bitcoin, so we want Bitcoin. So, between now, or April 9th, which was a couple days ago, and May 9th, in that 1 month period of time, we're going to add up all the tips that come in, and whoever gives the highest tip is going to get a 10% rebate back to them. So if enough people tip, that rebate, that jackpot will be pretty good. So we've already got at least one tip in. I know we don't have the biggest show, but consider getting yourself a Rumble wallet, which isn't hard to do. You can just download the links and do it, and you can buy Bitcoin there. You can also use River, which is our preferred way to buy Bitcoin. What I like about River, they hold whatever you have in there. They're holding actual Bitcoin. They're not hypothecating or anything like that. And Lisa put the link in there, river.com/invite and all that. That's our referral code. So feel free to go there to start a River account. And I do recommend everybody do it. Now, aside from our promotion, right, Tom, you're going to be teaching a class at 1776 Live that goes over this. Yep. Now, that class, we're gonna introduce it in Spokane on the 25th when we're there. We're doing a live event there, Starting Over, and you guys can go to 1776live.us and get links, and you can register. It's $49 for a ticket. But when we do that class at 1776 Live, you're going to go over not just the contrast between money and fiat currency, not just the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, but you're going to be explaining some of the technical stuff. You'll be explaining how to use a hot wallet, how to use a cold wallet. What happens if your house burns down and your cold wallet melts? How do you get access to your Bitcoin so you don't lose it? Because that's the other big concern, right, Lisa? What if I lose the Bitcoin? So you're going to be going into all those kind of details. Anything else you want to share with that class? And again, always a good time to buy Bitcoin. But if you're kind of like, this is just such a new technology, you can't think of it like, well, I'd rather put the money in Bitcoin than take the class. The class is the education that will set you up for a future of being a multi-millionaire through Bitcoin. And without it, you do run the risk of losing your keys or putting it in, like, FTX was one of those ones that people had a bunch of Bitcoin or they had ETFs. I don't know exactly how that worked, but it collapsed and they lost everything because they weren't in self-custody mode.
Yeah.
So you're going over all of that.
That's huge. And in terms of this episode being focused on the myths, mm-hmm. I have a very dear friend who is all poo-poo Bitcoin because he lost all of it in one of those.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why we did our due diligence to recommend a place that you can buy and hold your Bitcoin until you may want to get a cold storage.
Yeah. There's a famous concept in Bitcoin is an early educator in the space, and he said, "Not your keys, not your Bitcoins." And that was a part of the small quote. And what that really represents is when someone else is holding your Bitcoin for you, you don't actually have Bitcoin. You have an IOU for Bitcoin, right? It's kind of the closest analogy for modern day is having a $100 bill in your hand is not the same as having a $100 balance at your bank account, right? Because if you suddenly become, a person of interest by the government, they can shut off your bank accounts. Yes, persona non grata, right? Suddenly you don't have your bank account anymore. They can't take something that's in your physical hand without applying pressure. Bitcoin is unique in that even applying pressure, they can't take it from you. So, yeah, Bitcoin is truly represents the essence of property rights, right? This is the one thing this is the one asset in the whole world you can own and can't be taken from you, even if they kill you, right? So it's unique in that way. One
of the phrases one of the ways I understand this is it overcomes the warlord dilemma, which this is something we used to study in political science. You've got a gold bars. If I bring enough big enough army, give it to me or else what? And then I go take your gold. Hey, I want your land. You have a really nice farm. Oh, I don't want you to have it. Well, the law says you can't have it. Okay, I'm taking it, right?
Yep.
Bitcoin, it's like, give me your keys. No. Well, give me your keys. No, I'll kill you if you don't. Okay, then the Bitcoin's gone forever.
Yeah.
So
It
all of a
removes
sudden,
the incentive
it
for
moves the
force.
incentive for force and war and violence, because
Yes.
I'm better off putting energy into trading with you or creating a positive commercial interaction instead of being a warlord and just taking it, which, we live in a little safety bubble the last couple hundred years. Nation
Mhm.
states have been able to defend their Fort Knoxes, and there's commercial trading. But when a country gets weak, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, right, then the warlord comes out and we're going to take it from you. And so the crypto keys is not something that can be taken like that.
That's right. Because Bitcoin's private keys are just information, you can literally memorize, and it's not complex. It's 12 English words or 24 English words, depending on your wallet setup. You can literally memorize those and carry billions of dollars of purchasing power across a border, and nobody knows that you did it, right? It's literally in your head. Now, if you only had it in your head, that could be risky, because if you get bonked in the head, right, now your family's left high and dry, right? But yeah, I did see a couple of questions that I'd be happy to answer from the chat, or if you want to, pick a few out, or
go
yeah.
for it.
So I saw somebody said, is it too late? Is it too expensive? We talked a little bit about that, but just to talk about that a little more, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin at a time. So one thing that some people may not realize is Bitcoin is divisible. Just like a dollar, it can be divided into 100 cents. Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million smaller units, right? So you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. In fact, I buy Bitcoin every single day. I literally have an automatic purchase set up to buy a little bit of Bitcoin every single day. And that allows me to live without caring what the price in dollars is, because I'm buying a little bit every day and I pay my bills in Bitcoin. And we will talk more about that at the event in Spokane. But because of that, I don't even care what the value in dollars is. My goal is to have a little bit more Bitcoin every month, and by buying on a regular basis, whether it's every time you get paid, every day, however you want to set it up, you can accumulate that. So it's never too late. It's not too expensive, because there will always be Bitcoin enough for everyone. It's just a matter of how soon you get in and what price you pay to get it.
So the other thing too is, because Bitcoin is real savings, it's a weight and measure.
Yes.
It stays the same. If they print more money, which they will, right? The
Mhm.
daily value of Bitcoin back and forth, it kind of, you mentioned it looks like a tech stock to some people. Don't think of it like a tech stock.
Yeah.
When you save that Bitcoin, right? If you're trying to set aside $100 for retirement, you're contributing to a 401k or an IRA. Stop.
Yes.
Buy
Yeah.
Bitcoin. If you've got money that you're setting aside for a rainy day in the future, you should hold it in Bitcoin. You will not lose. Right.
Yeah.
And so
That's
that is one of the things I was like, oh my goodness. Even, I'm seeing all these charts where people are calculating the retirement amounts. And, if you're like an early adopter and you've got 75 Bitcoin or you've got 1,000 Bitcoin, you're a billionaire. Great. Awesome. We love it. But for a lot of people, they're trying to get a half a Bitcoin. They're saying, I retire in 15 years and I'm trying to get a half a Bitcoin. That's saying I'm trying to save $35,000. And that's going to be enough to sustain me indefinitely through retirement in 10 or 15 years. In the Ignite presentation, I show that chart with how much you need to save. And the crazy thing is, in the beginning, when I first started showing that chart 20 years ago, 3,000 to 5,000 was a good retirement for someone on a fixed income in Eastern Idaho. You go to that same community in Eastern Idaho, and it's 7,500 to 10,000 to 12,000 a month for the same house, the same grocery bill, the same electrical usage.
Yep.
Bitcoin sets you out of that completely. So that's one of the things I've seen. A lot of these Bitcoiners, they're realizing, it might be really difficult for me in the next year or two to save 70 grand and buy a Bitcoin because I can't buy it today.
Yeah.
But they're like, if I can just get a half a Bitcoin or in between now and retirement, that's enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's true. And
it's enough actually it's enough no matter what price you buy it. So even if Bitcoin continues to go up, you still keep buying. If Bitcoin's $1 million a Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. Then the amount for retirement goes from half a Bitcoin to an eighth of a Bitcoin.
Okay, so another myth buster. Let's bust this myth. The people that are out there saying, go buy stocks, put your money in the stock market. Like, the stock market's doing gangbusters. You can make so much money.
it's all reflected on inflation. Like that's
Yeah.
they're actively right now. Go look at what Scott Bessent wrote in the Wall Street Journal. They're actively right now allowing that to pump because they can liquidate and move it into Bitcoin before the little guy figures it out. Right? They want to acquire thousands of Bitcoin when I'm saying you're central bank, you need to acquire thousands of Bitcoin. But for us little guys, man, if you can get a couple Bitcoin, you'll be a Saudi sheik by the time this is set in place. But if you just get onto the Bitcoin standard, it's the first time in my lifetime, because I was a real estate guy, 2007, 2008, real estate's the only real money. Right. It's the only thing that's going to hedge against inflation. And it was mainly because the price of real estate goes up because of inflation. Right. Bitcoin doesn't just match inflation. It beats it by a mile because of this adoption period. And this adoption period is going to last 15, 20, 30 years. Yeah. Right. So there is not, it's like, you have to read the Bitcoin standard. It will warp your mind because it puts you back into this place where gold makes sense again. The difference is I can sell my gold. I can buy an ice cream cone with it. Whereas with gold, what are you going to a pawn shop? You know what I mean? Like it's become non-useful money.
Yeah, even if you do go to a local precious metal broker, you're paying a 20% premium to sell spot, right? You can buy maybe a 5% premium, but you're losing 20%.
And whatever day you need to sell it, it's always down.
The worst day. It's the worst day. And that actually is a great segue into one of the other questions. And the question was, if you buy one Bitcoin for $70,000, are you able to spend $70,000? And that's a great question. When you buy some Bitcoin, regardless of the price in dollars, you're getting a fixed amount of the total amount of Bitcoin that will ever exist. So for example, if you were to buy one whole Bitcoin today for $70,000 or whatever the price is, somewhere around there, you now have 1/21 millionth of the entire wealth that the world represents, right? 1/21 millionth of all of the Bitcoin that will ever exist, and there can never be more. So in the short term, let's say Bitcoin goes from $70,000 today and it drops to $60,000. If you were to immediately try to sell that Bitcoin, you're only going to get $60,000. But you need to flip that equation on its head and say, once I've purchased the Bitcoin, it can never be debased. It can never be devalued. The amount of Bitcoin you have, which in this example is one full Bitcoin, or another way to look at that is 100 million Satoshis, which is like the equivalent of a penny for $1. You will always have that same exact amount. So in 10 years, when the price of one Bitcoin is worth $1 million, you now have the purchasing power of $1 million in 10 years from now, not just $70,000, right?
Keeping
if you did that same
relational ratio of what you have to what is possible is the key to the value.
And that's the thing. It is not that the Bitcoin doesn't earn interest. When you think of it like a stock, that's when you are like, well, what's it worth? Bitcoin is Bitcoin. There's going to be a day where we say, well, how much dollars? We're going to flip the script, and we're not going to say how many dollars is a Bitcoin worth. We're going to say how many Bitcoin is a dollar worth, and it's going to be a fraction of a Satoshi,
or nothing, right?
Or nothing, yeah.
Or nothing, yeah.
And there, the more I understand this, and with my political science background, this changes in an instant. Just like when there was the Federal Reserve was created and they started sending a lot of money into the 1920s, there's a lot of speculation because all this money was floating around. It was inflated, but people speculated with it. They took a hit. By 1933, they confiscated bullion in the United States, and around the world, they've basically done the same thing. And then in 1973, they said, oh, and by the way, it's not redeemable even by nation states. Yeah. And so when things happen, like if they say, hey, by the way, now we're backing our currency with Bitcoin, that moment is going to be a talk by a president. And all of a sudden, the whole world will shift out from under you, and you either have it or you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if they do another Executive Order 6102, when what was it, FDR made gold illegal to hold by individuals, if they did something like that with Bitcoin, you hope to have had it before that happens, right? Because at that point, it'll get a little more difficult. Today, we can just log on to River and buy some, right? And there's lots of exchanges. If that scenario happens, you're going to be having to do peer-to-peer, which is still amazingly possible with Bitcoin, right? There's nobody that can stop it. There's nobody that can get in the way of it. So
even with people say, well, what if they block it on the internet, right? Like a totalitarian country blocks all the Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. At this point, they've already got it going over radio waves.
Yeah, that's right.
Peer to peer, just with a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, there is no stopping it, right? In order to actually stop Bitcoin, you'd have to shut down the global internet indefinitely. Yeah. Indefinitely. You can't stop the internet around the whole globe. Sure, one country can shut off the internet in a localized area for a short amount of time, but now you can literally send Bitcoin via text message. There's a great app that Jack Dorsey.
China's been unable to stop it, and they tried.
Oh yeah, they've just search on the internet for China bans Bitcoin, and it's happened like 17, 18 times now, right? They keep trying, but
they can ban everything.
Yeah, and with the Great Wall, the Great Firewall, right? If anybody could, it would be them. They can't stop it. So yeah, it really is unstoppable, unconfiscatable at this point. It's the only thing I'm interested in, right? I've said a couple times, I live on a Bitcoin standard. So I literally have negative dollars at any given time. Bitcoin is my money, just like I'm a citizen of the internet.
So another myth. Mm-hmm. I have Bitcoin. What can I do with it? What can I buy with it? And you're the first guy I've ever met who doesn't use dollars. FRN's history.
You convert it at the point of sale through an app.
Yeah, and I use it direct as well. So yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that if that's where you're headed.
Yeah,
let me answer another question. B-Man says, are you taxed when you spend the Bitcoin or when you convert to Federal Reserve notes?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So as of the current tax law that I'm aware of, Bitcoin is treated like an asset, and so it follows traditional capital gains rules. So no consequences for buying it. No consequences for borrowing against it, no tax consequences. But when you dispose of it, whether it's selling it, spending it, trading it, you have to report a capital gain at that point, or a capital loss, depending on if Bitcoin is up or down from when you set your cost basis. So as of now, that's how it is in the United States. You are meant to report capital gains taxes when you dispose of it. So now, you can buy as much as you want and put it away in cold storage for savings and don't have to even.
There's a couple caveats to that. One thing you can do, and this is something I've explored quite a bit, is borrowing against it, which that's how wealthy people do. It's treated like a commodity, right? Mm-hmm. So but it also, there's lenders that will lend on it like it's a stock portfolio. So very, very wealthy people, they put all their assets into stock and they borrow against it. They never sell.
There's actually a company now in the United States that's rolling something new out called a Bitcoin line of credit. So it works just like a credit card, but instead you provide Bitcoin to back that loan instead of just off of your social credit score, right, or whatever. So there are more and more products. That's how I bought my house.
Carry the lead on that. What you just said, that slower. That is huge, because we have a program that we offer, and you can find out about it at 1776 Live, having to do with equity that could affect one's credit score. Mm. So this is an alternate avenue to build credit.
Absolutely. And here I can give a personal example. So I recently retired from my kind of 9-to-5 job, and I underestimated the requirements for getting a mortgage. And we had sold our house. I bought Bitcoin with the equity in the house, by the way, with the proceeds of the house. And we rented for a few years because I saw this very good opportunity a few years back when Bitcoin was at its previous cycle low. I turned all the equity that we had in the house, different equity than you guys normally talk about, but the value that was stored in my house, I liquidated that. I bought Bitcoin with it. And then we rented for a few years.
Lucky son of a bitch.
The thing is, anybody can do this, right? If you have trapped equity in your house, right?
This was understood it.
Yeah, this was decade of and more of studying. But then when I was ready to, I had already retired while I was still renting. I had already stopped my traditional 9-to-5 job. And when I went to go buy a house, I wanted a mortgage, right? I don't care, even if it's a 7 or 8% interest rate, it's still cheaper than spending my Bitcoin. I don't want to spend my Bitcoin, right? But nobody would give me a mortgage because I couldn't show any traditional income, right? And Bitcoin isn't quite yet recognized by traditional finance systems like, large lenders, mortgage lenders, as an asset that they can see. So I borrowed against my Bitcoin. There's several platforms now where I can basically post collateral in the form of Bitcoin and get dollars in return. And I bought my house with a Bitcoin backed loan, right? And so with a combination of products like that and this new kind of concept of a Bitcoin line of credit, you don't have to have a credit score. It doesn't even matter. Nobody checked my credit for these loans because I'm providing valuable collateral and they're just giving me half as much money as I give them back in the form of, dollars that are just like a melting ice cube and constantly losing value, right? So
That is beautiful.
within less than 10 years, I'll be able to sell a very small fraction of the collateral I used for that loan to just pay it all off, and I'll just, not have any debt at all. So
Yeah. The other thing too, B-Man, there are some strategies to roll that capital gains through trust, and we talk about that 1776live.us all the time. Right? You can put your Bitcoin into a trust. One of the things we'll be exploring when your class goes live is a private trust that does not require an EIN to hold the Bitcoin, which then allows you a lot more flexibility, and it's all enforced by law. So we'll be talking about that in the class.
Yeah.
Pray the Rosary Daily had another question here. She says, "What would make the price of Bitcoin go down?"
So Bitcoin is the purest form of the free market, right? So the simplest answer to that question, it can be a complex question, right? But the simplest answer is when there's more people that want to sell Bitcoin than there are people that want to buy Bitcoin, the price goes down in dollar terms.
So
and
it's
when the reverse,
it's true economics, right?
yes,
like the stock market doesn't work, P&E ratio and all of that doesn't work with economics, but Bitcoin goes back to pure economic strategies. And
because it really is, like I said, the purest form of that concept of supply and demand, because there is a fixed supply. It's literally the only asset in the world, not counting collectibles like artwork, right? There's a fixed supply of Picasso paintings and there will never be more, but that can't be used as money, right? Bitcoin is the first commodity that has a true fixed supply. We think about logically, there's a fixed supply of gold on the planet, right? But we haven't even scratched the surface on these underground gold mines. Oh, there's an asteroid in space that has more gold than the entire Earth has in it, right? Nothing truly is scarce compared to Bitcoin. Because of that, when people want Bitcoin, if they buy it and take custody of it, it's taking it out of circulation in a way that's not possible for anything else. With stocks, with even mostly gold, unless you're taking physical possession of the gold, it can be traded like paper, right? There's promises made against those things. They can trade derivatives of the stocks, not even just the stocks themselves. When they decide they need to raise more funds, they just make more stocks and dilute the existing supply of stock, right? None of that's possible with Bitcoin. Because of that, it's volatile in the short term, right? If you look at 1 year period, the price can go all over the place, up and down, up and down. That's why I say spend and replace. Buy Bitcoin, use it to encourage that circular Bitcoin economy, but replace it, right? So if you're going to spend some Bitcoin, buy enough to replace what you spent, so that at the end of the month, you have a little more Bitcoin than you did last month. But yeah,
it's the only way. This cannot. It's almost like once you see it, the light bulb goes off, and we could spend hours trying to explain this. And until the light bulb goes off, it'll be like,
yeah,
it's the only way to actually save. Okay, it's the only way to actually save. If you even save an ounce of gold, they're mining more gold.
Yeah.
Right. And even if the currency they print, the value of that gold goes up, but you have a spending problem. There's all kinds of issues with physical metals, which I was a silver guy forever, right? But Bitcoin, if you can just spend less than everybody tries to do this. They live on a budget. Yeah. If you can just spend one Satoshi less than what you put into Satoshis every month, no matter what happens with the value of the dollar, price of eggs are going to be the price of eggs. It's going to match up the right thing on the Satoshis, but now you're actually saving. Even if you save $100 a month and you're budgeting, every month when they print more money, that $100 spending capacity goes to 97, to 92, to 85. When I graduated high school, gold was at like $250 an ounce. It's just shy of $5,000 an ounce right now. It wouldn't have mattered If I put $1,000 a month away every month, if I saved it in dollars, even if the bank was paying me 2 or 3%, I can't even buy the same amount of gold,
Yeah.
right, with that savings now as I could have just buying it in gold in high school. But and I would have a spendability problem with it all along the way. With Bitcoin, this is why the Bitcoin standard, actually using it as your standard. Everybody here is using a fiat standard. If you use a Bitcoin standard and you just simply save one more Satoshi than you spend, right? That budget you have, if you can just spend one less Satoshi than you put in, you'll be miles ahead of 99% of the population.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. There are some serious structural changes right now. They are allowing Bitcoin to be purchased by people's 401ks. So people are not going to want a mutual fund when they can buy Bitcoin. They're allowing it to be bought in IRAs. They're allowing a lot of these stock companies that are buying Bitcoin and then selling stock on the company that buys the Bitcoin. People think that's a good investment. Maybe it is. A better investment is to own your own Bitcoin right now.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. There are lots of ways to get exposure to Bitcoin. Like you listed off a few. One example, Fidelity has a Bitcoin ETF, and the stock symbol is FBTC. You can buy that and you get direct Bitcoin exposure, but you don't get any of Bitcoin's superpowers, right?
Yes.
This is why I come back to that.
B-Man1791 says, what will prevent the Bitcoin production cap from being expanded in the future, as in stock splitting? This is a great question. Why will it never go above 21 million Bitcoin?
Yeah, so at its core, Bitcoin is a protocol, and a protocol is just a word to mean a set of rules. And because there's no ruler, there is no board of directors, there's no CEO, there's no president, there's no central anything. Bitcoin is literally a distributed system around the world. In order to change the rules, which the total amount is one of the rules, in order to change the rules, all of the holders of Bitcoin, all the participants would have to agree to this. And simultaneously, right.
Within a 2-minute period.
Yeah, it could happen over time, and that's a social thing. I shouldn't. Let me rewind that statement. We can never increase the cap. Changes can happen to Bitcoin over time, but it's a very slow, laborious process that takes people adopting the change voluntarily. No one can ever force a change.
Use your chess example. That's a great
chess is a great example of a protocol that most people don't even think about, right? So the game of chess has been played for over 1,000 years as we know it today. And it even goes back to 1,500 years in earlier versions that had different shaped pieces and things like that. You could go back in time 100 years, sit down in a park in a country where you don't even speak the language, and you can have a game of chess with a person and know that you're both playing fair because you both understand the rules. So if a person moves a piece in a way that isn't allowed by the protocol of chess, they're cheating, and you stand up and the game is over, right? You can't play a game that's not fair. Bitcoin is like that, in that all the participants of the network are agreeing to a set of rules. And the mechanism for that participation is the software that you can run on a node, and anybody can do this. That is your sovereign control over the rules. Now, if I take that software, it's open source software, and I just decide I'm a software developer, I'm going to just update my code to be 40 million Bitcoin instead of 21 million. I'm going to give myself 10 million Bitcoin. No, everybody, just like in a game of chess, the moment I connect that node to the internet and somebody says, hey, this guy changed the rules, I'm booted off. I'm a cheater. Nobody will play with me, right? Bitcoin is that decentralized protocol, so no one can cheat and produce more. It's a fixed supply. There's a great quote from Satoshi in the first year or so, where he made a comment. I couldn't quote it. I'd have to look it up, but he made a comment that when he released version 0.1, the very first iteration of Bitcoin, he said, due to the nature of this thing that I've just released, the monetary properties are now fixed and can never be changed, because no one would vote to devalue their own money.
That's the thing. The Bitcoin Standard book talks about that. Yeah, let's double the value of Bitcoin. Well, first of all, it's divisible out a million ways. So it's like $1 now has 1,000,000 pennies. So it's not going to be a problem. Like, that's the other thing too. Yes. It's not that there's only 21 million Bitcoin. It's that there's 21 trillion Satoshis, okay, which is enough. In the book, it talks about $1 is sufficient to run the entire world's economy if it's divisible enough. So
Yeah.
that it works on the divisibility, but the divisibility is fixed. But
Yep.
the other thing too is it resists any kind of changing. It also resists hacking, because the moment someone hacks it, it's not worth anything. So what was the point? The moment that you change the rules, you just devalued your own savings account. It's like, we don't vote for more printing of money. That's the politicians, because they're getting kickbacks somehow, right? The
Right.
people don't vote for that. And it changes the incentives. It goes along with it, eliminates the warlord dilemma. The central bank can't just go decide they're going to do an extra printing this year, or we're going to have $1 trillion bailout. That's what started Bitcoin, was the 2008 bailout, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can't do that. It's the way they built it and decentralized it. In order for Bitcoin to have a stock split to do that, Tom would have to agree, and Lisa would have to agree, and I would have to agree. And guess what? It all has to happen in 10 minutes, and we're not going to agree to that all together at the same time in 10 minutes. In the
Yeah.
book,
The
it talks about
millions and
how you
millions
would,
of people that own it. No, it's not going to
yeah,
happen.
and
Listen,
there have been multiple attempts to
Mhm.
update the protocol, and even with some of the guys that were there early on, that were emailing Satoshi Nakamoto, right?
Mhm.
They have been unsuccessful in getting even things like speeding up the ledger to pass, let alone adding Bitcoin to the ledger. Like, it's not
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, it's incredible to follow those discussions, because there have the process to update or change Bitcoin is a process called the Bitcoin Improvement Proposal. And so anybody that is a software developer and understands Bitcoin can write a proposal to make an update to Bitcoin. Right. One of the things that's been talked about in the news, Bitcoin related news, is the threat of quantum computers. Right. What would happen if somebody built a quantum computer and pointed it at Bitcoin, right? Would it break the cryptography that Bitcoin uses? Well, my answer is maybe, but it's okay. That's an update that everyone would agree to, right? If someone approached me and says, hey, we've got this proposal that will make Bitcoin safe from quantum computing attacks, if it ever even materializes, we're not in any rush, because it really isn't anywhere near being real, even though the articles sound like it. But let's just say that
Article
did.
put out by Ethereum, the biggest competitor to Bitcoin,
Yes, right,
and by Google,
exactly.
who's been trying to run their own cryptocurrency.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a type of change that everyone would, of course, agree to. If quantum computing suddenly actually is real and it could actually be a threat to Bitcoin, all it takes is a software update and we're quantum resistant, right?
And
So
the other thing too, and this is what is kind of one of those, oh yeah, if you're worried about your Bitcoin being hacked, that's the least of your concerns. Every fiat system is going to be
yes,
hacked. Every central bank is
yes.
going to be hacked. Every
Every
government,
energy grid system.
every energy grid will be hacked. It is, yep, they might turn off the electricity. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there is, if Bitcoin can be hacked, and all the best hackers in the world that can hack into FBI and CIA databases, and China just had their database hacked, if they can't hack Bitcoin,
Yeah.
right, it's not going to happen. In the book, the Bitcoin Standard, it talks about, well, isn't Bitcoin used by criminals? It's like, the FBI loves it when drug dealers use Bitcoin, because it's like this easy to find them, right?
That's right.
But
That's
but
right.
the other thing is, it says in there, the only thing that has successfully happened is hackers will hack your system and ask for a Bitcoin ransom, which actually just goes to prove Bitcoin is better than gold, silver, dollars,
Right.
everything else.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
If they
it's
ask
like,
for dollars, their bank account could be shut off. If they ask for Bitcoin and somebody's gullible enough to pay them, you can't get that back. There's no
can't get it
customer
back.
service hotline, or there's no CEO to say, "Hey, reverse this transaction." No, that's it. That
which
is part of
you
what can
guys,
make
we are
Bitcoin
already at
intimidating.
an hour. We're
Oh.
past our hour, and we have one more question in here. Everybody's got to come to Spokane. Meet Tom, geek out on it. We're going to
And-
be there April 25th.
and-
The link
and
is
here's
in
the
here to
thing,
find out more.
I want to prep people for the class, right? The investment you make to learn this, to understand it inside and out, how to hold a cold wallet, how to run a node, maybe a miner, all those different things, it's money well spent, right? The idea that it's, Tom, you've struggled this, and all this information is public source. I know.
Mhm.
But like what Tom just said, there's no hotline to call. If you lose your wallet and you don't know how to restore it, if your house burns down, if you want to run all of these different things, Tom's the hotline, right? There's very few people that are going to spend the time and are passionate about this and want to share the freedom it brings, that will help educate you so that you can know how to do it, so that you can have confidence doing it. Because it is a scary thing. We're asking you to move from gold to dollars, and now we're saying gold to Bitcoin, right? And it's like, but what if I can't call the bank if my card gets hacked? That is one of the great things about Bitcoin, is it's truly sovereign. And so, please, please, please take the class once it's up and running. Come to Spokane with us. Spend the investment to learn, right? From someone who's done it. That's the thing, Tom, you've been doing this since 2013.
Yeah.
So you're not like, hey, I just found, like me, I just found it last week. It's so great. So,
Right.
I called Tom and I'm like, Tom, what exchange should I use? What cold wallet should I get? How should I do this stuff? And I'm excited to take the class myself.
Yeah, I'm excited. I get really passionate about educating people about Bitcoin because I've realized, I think I said it earlier in this call, the potential to help anyone on the planet. It doesn't matter your circumstances, whether you're a sustenance farmer in the developing world or you're a billionaire here. It doesn't matter. Bitcoin is a solution that we've never had a solution for. People diversify their investments to reduce risk, but that's a problem that can now be solved, right? You no longer need to diversify when you've already solved the problem of the risk that comes with having these companies. One CEO tweets out something controversial, stock prices tank, right? There is no representative for Bitcoin. It's still subject to the market forces, right? That causes surges and declines, but it can't be modified in that way.
And even silver and gold is being manipulated. Their values are being messed with. And Carlitz asked a fantastic question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Bitcoin mining systems for home use? Trade cost of electricity for fractions of Bitcoin.
I love it. And I've done it. So, and there's really exciting developments related to this. So just a quick example. Today, to mine Bitcoin competitively, it costs a significant amount of money to buy a really powerful server. And this is something that would normally run in a data center. Now, if you know an electrician, they can get you hooked up. But that's kind of pricey to get into. They sell small miners that are just a tiny fraction of the power needs. It's less than $1 a day in electricity, and it can give you small amounts of Bitcoin on the regular Satoshis, or you can use it to lottery mine, right? So the concept of mining is really a really advanced guessing game, and your miner gets to guess millions of times per second. So it's like having this perpetual lottery ticket, right? That you can run in your house for just hobby mining. But there's really exciting development in that manufacturers of heating products. So think water heaters, central air heating systems. So I live in Colorado. I live in Colorado, and both my water heater and my furnace run on propane, liquid propane. And it is very expensive, even compared to electricity. And I pay a kind of a premium rate for electricity because I'm kind of remote. I can literally replace my water heater with a Bitcoin miner. It looks just like a water heater, and a plumber can install it.
That is so smart.
Instead of just burning electricity or liquid propane to generate the heat, it mines Bitcoin. It takes the waste heat from that computer process that generates heat, heats the water with it. Same thing with the furnace. Yeah, so it's super exciting. Imagine getting a subsidy for heating your house, right?
Lisa and I are both running, floor heaters next door. And I saw the same thing. You can get one of these heater that mines Bitcoin. I'm burning the electricity already. Now anyway, I run the program and I get to have the hot air blown from the computer onto me instead of some hot ceramic coil.
And that heater that you just lifted up, there's literally a company called Heatbit that sells one that looks exactly like that. You plug it into the wall, you give it some credentials and a Bitcoin wallet, and you're mining Bitcoin and while you're heating your room, right? So they're already developing those.
These are the things that we're going to go over in great detail in class. Mm-hmm. I cannot emphasize this enough. Go get your Bitcoin, do what you're going to do. Get in this class. It will affect everything we're doing. The Epic Trust, those of you that are participating in it, we're going to be talking about this because we can borrow against Bitcoin. So those that have made exchanges, we can set that into Bitcoin, and now we can borrow the cash out of it to do what we're going to do. But now you can be beneficiaries of that Bitcoin forever. right? So there are so many great ways that we can leverage this, and we have a window of time. Like, I look at it, anything under $100,000 is like buying pennies.
Yeah.
It is a great value, and there is a moment happening right now where the institutionalization of this through 401k retirement accounts, when that Clarity Act passes, you're going to watch banks, because they're already announcing what their first buys are going to be. They're putting billions and billions of dollars into Bitcoin they will never sell. And, as soon as that Clarity Act passes, which could be later this summer, could be shortly, as soon as that happens, there's going to be a jump going, so we want to be positioned well. Our whole thing is about sovereignty and freedom, and it's about the tools we use to get there. Trusts are powerful. Equity is powerful because it can help you settle your accounts and get debt free and all that kind of stuff. But Bitcoin is a future, right? And the other thing too, with the Epic Trust, I still believe in real estate. I know, maybe you don't want to right now go buy a rental property when Bitcoin's sitting out there, but you can turn $10,000 into of Bitcoin through the exchange and the trust combined with everybody else's. We can borrow against it, go do a deal. We've got one right now. We're looking at 170% ROI. That's pretty good. And then we can take it and put it back into Bitcoin, and you can be the beneficiary of that forever. Right. So there's so many ways that, especially with the way the market's working out with borrowing against Bitcoin, that you can save it indefinitely, but still have the spendability to go make short-term investments like a fix and flip or a spec house or something, which, right, Tom, the average is 30% return, and it goes like this. But even if you do that 30% return, if you can get a 30% return and borrow against it and get 170% return, you know what I mean? It starts to be this incredible velocity that we can do as a community. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, it really is. I like to think about Bitcoin as kind of the new hurdle rate. So if you're a holder of Bitcoin and not counting the ability to borrow against it, and you're considering another investment, you have to say, can this other investment beat the compound annual growth rate or the CAGR of Bitcoin? Not very many can, right? Bitcoin has been the best performing asset in the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 15 years. So it's like, I'm hesitant to make risky investments when I know that the Bitcoin I'm holding is growing at 60% compound annual growth rate on average over the last 10 years or more. So now you enter into the ability to borrow against it. You don't lose all the upside because you still keep it, and you can do both. That's why I bought the house when I did. I wasn't willing to sell Bitcoin to buy the house, but I borrowed against it. Now I have a nice house.
And that is the greatest thing, to be able to borrow against it, so you can, because real estate is real estate. You need a farm, you need food, you need a house. It is going to run parallel with Bitcoin, but just like right now you buy real estate in dollars, probably in America for a long time, you're going to have to still use dollars, probably the rest of our lives. But that Bitcoin becomes the asset. That's that stock account that's huge that you borrow against, which creates no selling of it. And now you can have double exposure. That's how billionaires think.
Yeah.
Right? That's how multimillionaires think, is they use the assets they have to turn other assets, and you just create that compound velocity effect.
Yeah, Elon Musk doesn't have a bank account with $7 billion or $100 billion or whatever his net worth is. It's all in his assets. It's all in the companies he owns, right?
Yep.
But to go back to the housing example, houses, I believe, because of Bitcoin, will fall to their utility value, right?
Yes.
People treat houses like savings
Hurry
accounts.
up!
Yes, right? Now,
I'm in Southern California.
But here's the thing, Tom. I'll say this about that. Because of the way governments are currently starting to treat Bitcoin, they will not fall in value when compared to dollars.
Yeah.
They will accelerate.
Yep.
There will be, not long, in very short order of time, a starter home in America will be $1 million, but it will be 15 Satoshis.
Yeah.
Right. It'll go to its, and this is something that you told me.
Yeah.
You said Bitcoin trends to zero. And so the value of the house will go to its utility value. And here's what I have to say. It already is. It's just, we're not dealing with a standard currency. 1 ounce of gold in ancient Greece bought a nice toga, and then 1 ounce of gold in Rome bought a nice tunic. 1 ounce of gold bought a London fog suit at the height of London. 1 ounce of gold today will get you a nice custom suit. The ounce of gold, that's the utility value of that custom bespoke piece of clothing that you,
exactly.
I love that word that you,
clothing.
that's how a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on a quarter acre has not changed. What's changed is the money. And
Yeah,
so
I love it. The way
what's
I've
going to
heard that.
happen is it's already its utility value. You just don't know what the money is worth. Which
Yes.
is why people like me, who I graduated college, I could have bought a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $125,000. Now you're looking at $500,000 for the same dang house.
Yeah, and the percentage of the average salary just keeps getting bigger and bigger to buy that house. So the problem isn't staying the same difference; it's getting worse and worse, right? And I like the
Yeah,
phrase, "Your house isn't getting more valuable; your money's getting less valuable."
less valuable.
Right?
Yes.
And so switch to a money that doesn't lose its value,
Look
right?
at
Switch
how
to a money
he
that's
looks
not
like Santa Claus. Look at how happy he is. He's like in the North Pole with all the toys.
That's right.
And Taylor too.
I love
Oh
it.
my God. Okay, one last question, and then of course it's mine. When Bitcoin about a year ago was much higher than it is now,
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah, so the last all-time high was October of 2025, so October last year, and Bitcoin hit 126,000 per Bitcoin. What's interesting when you study Bitcoin's history, it moves in these 4-year cycles. And these 4-year cycles are related to something called the halving events. It's not directly related. It's also market forces that come into play. But we'll talk more about this at the event in Spokane. But the halving event reduces the issuance of the new Bitcoin that didn't exist yesterday, that existed today, right? So we know the total supply. It will never exceed 21 million, but not all of those are in circulation yet. Right? So they're being released every 10 minutes, and this is part of the protocol, and we'll talk more about that. But that supply gets cut in half. So every 4 years so far, right? Bitcoin's 17-year history, around a little bit after the halving event, when the supply issuance of new Bitcoin cuts in half, the price goes down a bit. And that partially because if you're a miner, right, you're expending tens of thousands of dollars a day in electricity or more if you're a large scale to participate in this Bitcoin mining competition. And suddenly the rewards that you've been getting all get halved. You might have to scale back your mining operation. You might need to wait, and the price will eventually adjust, right? It also follows business cycles. But essentially, like I said earlier in the call, the price of Bitcoin and the fact that this is a new monetary instrument that's being discovered by the world. Really, it's that we're still in this early discovery process. Volatility is actually a good thing. Volatility is vitality. It allows people, if they're dollar cost averaging, right, if they're just buying a little bit with every paycheck or buying a little bit every day, it allows you to buy the dip, so to speak, right? When it goes in price, I get excited because my dollars get me more satoshis per dollar, right? And when I get paid, or when I get, when I charge for a service I'm providing, or I sell a widget, I'm usually taking dollars because not a lot of people know about Bitcoin yet. And the moment I get $1 in my hand, I convert it to satoshis. So when the price is down, I get excited because it's like 50% off, right? Historically, Bitcoin has had bigger dips than this. We've dropped 80% sometimes from the previous all-time high. But if you look at Bitcoin's history from the lows, we're always setting higher lows. Every single time we have a dip, we're setting higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. So in other words, the volatility is getting less volatile over time. And we're in this constant kind of 45-degree angle up and to the right in terms of purchasing power of the Bitcoin.
One of the other things too, why Bitcoin dropped this last time, and as a political guy, I'm like, it's also an element that the dollar did get stronger under Donald Trump. Right. So the dollar buys more. Remember, when Donald Trump came into office, the price of eggs was off the charts. Now you get a dozen for 97 cents. Guess what? It's still the same amount of Satoshis to buy a dozen eggs. So as eggs came down, the value compared to dollars did too. But so did fuel. Fuel was at almost $4 a gallon where I'm at when Biden was unelected. And Trump came in, within a couple months, it would drop down to almost $2 a gallon. And so, yes, it follows. The dollar did get stronger. The tariff thing affected the value of the dollar and its viability. So again, it just goes to reinforce, do not think of Bitcoin like a tech stock. It is not. It is a reflection. If the value of the dollar goes up, if it becomes more in demand, because Trump is doing things to try to make sure the world stays on a dollar standard, excellent. Your wages aren't likely to go down. Buy more Satoshis, because Donald Trump will be gone someday and the next president will come in and he'll hit print, right? And so that was a combination of the halving on top of the fact that the dollar, and it's a fact, the dollar got stronger. Now, what's happening now with Iran and the price of fuel, what's going to happen is Bitcoin will go up. I don't know if it's going to go to the moon next week or whatever, but it is trending up, and it's trending up along with what? The cost of energy, because the dollar is weaker to a barrel of oil right now. And so because a barrel of oil is also a barrel of oil, right?
Yeah.
So some of those things factor into it too. And that's why month to month and year to year, there's that volatility. But like you said, that's also vitality.
Yeah, I really like it. And I look at the history of Bitcoin, at the price of where we're at, how far away we are from the previous all-time high. And I truly believe we're in this deep value territory, right? It could drop a little more, and it's inevitable. When I tell somebody about Bitcoin for the first time, they go out and buy some, and the price drops the next day, right? It's inevitable, but just don't worry about that. I tell people the only wrong position in Bitcoin is to have zero, right? So go use that River referral link and buy $100 today, $50, whatever you can afford, just to get off zero. Then start learning about it, right? Read the Bitcoin Standard. If I have a whole list of recommended books, but that's probably at the top of the list. It's one of the best books on Bitcoin and how it works. And it's accessible, right? It doesn't just jump into the technology. It really explains money first, and then it goes into the Bitcoin.
Have you read the Fiat Standard, his second book?
Yeah, the follow-up.
Oh my God. You want to throw up in your mouth. It affects food. It affects medical. It affects education. The Fiat Standard is, and we've talked about this. Those of you that have attended our Ignite presentation, or the different versions we've done, we've talked about this. The Fiat and the non-sound money system affects our food. It affects the incentives for farmer, the cheap goods. It's the reason we don't have flying cars right now. The whole, it makes you want to throw up in your mouth because we're debt slaves.
There's a great
of the United States. We are debt slaves.
It's true. And if you want to see this visualized, all the ways our lives have gotten worse because of fiat money, there's a great website called WTFhappenedin1971.com, right? And the answer to the question is, what happened in 1971? That's when Nixon kind of got on television and said, I'm temporarily suspending the convertibility of the dollar to gold, right? And vice versa. So WTFhappenedin1971.com. And it just doesn't have any explanation, doesn't tell you what happened. It just shows charts after chart after chart of things getting worse in the United States related to how we live. And it really is the introduction of fiat money, right? It's a great way to visualize.
We became utterly untethered from the gold standard, and there's no going back. I've been around circles with people who are like, we just have to go back to gold standard. I'm like, it's impossible. Yeah. It cannot be done.
Yeah, so, the gold standard doesn't work in the internet age.
It doesn't work in the internet age. Yeah. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to join us on the podcast tomorrow at 6:30 a.m., Peasants Perspective. Also, please, if you enjoyed this, retweet it, re-exit, post it somewhere. If you're on Rumble, hit repost. If you're on YouTube, hit repost. YouTube, our views are dismal. It's just fine. I hate Google anyways. Didn't want your business anyways, YouTube. Okay, but please share this show. If you know anybody in Washington, Northern Idaho, anywhere within striking distance of Spokane, tell them to get out to our event on the 25th of April. You can go to 1776live.us. We will be going on tour. We plan on hitting Wisconsin. We plan on hitting Texas. We need your help to put those events together. Maybe we'll even hit your hometown, Colorado, Tom. We'll see. Hey, Tom's like, wait, am I signing up for a bunch of travel?
I love it. I'll do it.
We are so excited to have Tom in our community. I cannot be more excited.
He is in our community. He is a member of 1776 Live. Yes, and you can actually talk to him there. And the class, like Taylor said, is going to launch right after Spokane.
Yeah, and you guys, the investment in that class is going to be worth every penny. You are going to set yourself
up. Every
up,
Bitcoin.
Or every Bitcoin. Yeah,
every
exactly.
Satoshi.
Except payment in Bitcoin now. It is going to be worth every Satoshi, okay? Because you are going to be empowered. You're going to understand. And as Bitcoin does this, because it does this, you're not going to have any doubts. You're not going to be worrying about selling it. You're going to understand this is it. Tom, when we first talked, you said this isn't a once in a lifetime opportunity. This isn't a once in a generation opportunity. This is a once in a millennia opportunity. Yeah. This is like walking into the American River in California as the first guy, and the world's already on the gold standard. Bitcoin's out there, and you're walking around the river picking up nuggets of gold with no excess energy. Right now, look at all the energy that goes into mining dust, gold dust, and trying to get it out of thousands of yards of dirt. Right? You have the opportunity right now at $70,000 a Bitcoin to pick up a nugget that in literally a number of years, 2, 3, 5, 10 years will be worth $1 million.
There's a guy online that said that you were saying once in a lifetime. No, he calls it a once in a species event. Yeah. Right. This is incredible. It really is. His name is Jesse Myers. He's on X, but
when you understand what happened in the United States with the gold standard, that for the first time, by the way, in the United States, one of the really great things our founding fathers did was they made gold and silver for all debts, public and private. That was the first time in world history that a people, the actual little guy, the serfs, the peasants, the citizens, had access to the real money. Because in Europe, the kings and queens just hoarded it all, and it was script and their little, minted coins, and it was all their system, right? I mean, Rome played with sound money and shaving coins and, devaluing their currency by adding copper and bronze to this stuff. Okay. It was the first time that the people had access to sound money. And what it gave us was the Gilded Age. It gave us railroads, computers, radio, airplanes, everything. And the moment they stopped, and the moment we lost that sound money, we have stagnated on technology. Sure, we have more of it, but it's the same dang technology we've had for 100 years. The internet and computers were essentially invented in the 1800s. They've been distributed, but we don't have flying cars. You know what I mean?
Come on, where's my jetpack?
Went up to the point where it devalued the money completely.
Yeah, so it is. I love that. It's once in a species opportunity. So definitely come to Spokane. If not, 1776live.us on Thursdays, we do Ignite, and then do everything you can to get into Tom's class. It will be well worth it. Maybe we'll do a discount if you pay in Bitcoin. Maybe we'll do that.
I like it.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. And Taylor, thank you for hosting us on Peasants Perspective, and thank everybody for coming. We so appreciate it. And we'll be back next week, but tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Peasants Perspective.
All right. We'll see you guys.